Mm. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to another session of Finding God. We are still on chapter 62, Surah Ash-Shu'ara, which is the poets, and we'll be covering part 3 of it. It's a very long chapter, if you may recall me mentioning that a while ago. So it's a long chapter. It takes a while, and my schedule has been a bit haphazard recently, so I haven't been drilling down on it as I normally do. But now I'm back fully on track. Um, so last time we completed the story of Moses. Last time our story. Oh, why is this? I'm wearing this because of glares, and because it's stylish. So last time we were talking about the story of Moses, and we had covered it sufficiently up to this point where the Pharaoh was drowned and his armies were drowned. Um, and I came up to verse 68, if I may recall correctly. And verily, your Lord, He is truly the Almighty, the most merciful. I do remember reaching that stage. Today, I'm going to start here, around here, and then I'm going to go all the way to the story of Abraham and the story of Noah. So I'm going to do those verses today and just ponder a bit and pontificate and try to understand what the chapter means, because as I've explained before, the context is incredibly important here, right? So we are seeing around 615 AD, around that time, 615, 616, and we are seeing the people are used to Muhammad, peace be upon him, preaching now. They're used to this fact in his life. So now other stories are being told through the Quran, through the history, where the people who are already decided against Muhammad in his quest. This is how you can push your message across to them, because it's not all things equal. It's not ceteris paribus, right? It's you are entering the frame with somebody who has already decided that they want nothing to do with you or your message. If you want to go back to that wonderful guy you used to be before the age of 40, you this wonderful fellow, fine. We'll get back to you, we'll talk to you. But if you're going to come and preach this message, which goes against everything that we hold dear, then no, we don't want to deal with you, and we're going to antagonize you and assault you and make life difficult for you. That's the base mode, right? That's the base they are functioning from. So in the face of such animosity, we start here. Bismillah. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, and recite to them the story of Abraham. When he said to his father and his people, what do you worship? They said, we worship idols, and to them we are ever devoted. He said, do they hear you when you call on them? Or do they benefit you, or do they harm you? They said, nay, but we found our fathers doing so. It's the same story. Isn't that wonderful? It's the same story. The people who opposed Muhammad are the people saying, well, I worship this because my father worshipped it. And essentially, we are in the same bubble, right? We're in the same rat race, or what's the word? We're in the same boat, because I ended up following the religion of my father, right? It's path dependence, which kind of makes sense. My father is a Muslim, therefore I'm a Muslim. I was born and then I was ascribed the religion of Islam. It is important for every human being to be mindful, cognizant, and aware of what they believe and why they believe it. So I certainly have some confirmation bias towards Islam. So it's quite difficult for me to develop critical distance and be objective with that religion. I'm the first to say that as a rationalist. I'm the first to understand that when it comes to Islam, I will be biased. I can't be a critical observer of Islam. So I must be mindful of this confirmation bias and try to see why I believe what I believe and what veracity there is to that belief and how it compares to all other beliefs and so forth. That is one of the reasons why this exercise is taking place. But we are predisposed to follow the paths of our fathers, not just in our religions, fathers and mothers, not just in our religions, but in our professions, in the social class we marry in, the type of friends we make, the physical activity we do. A lot of what we do is genetic. The amount of weight you are supposed to gain, you can fight it off with your diet and with your exercise, but there are certain genetic predispositions. So a lot of the things that we end up doing come from our parents and their parents and their parents. So it's lineage. And you must rise above it. You must fight against those that are problematic, and you must lean into those that are beneficial. But it makes sense when they say, but we found our fathers doing so. It makes sense. I can fault them for their lack of knowledge, lack of understanding when it comes to the one true God. But when they say, oh, I do it because my father did it, it's something applicable to all human beings. He said, do you observe that which you have been worshipping, you and your ancient fathers? Verily they are enemies to me, save the Lord of the Alameen, the mankind, jinn, and all that exists, who has created me, and it is he who guides me. And it is he who feeds me and gives me to drink. And when I am ill, it is he who cures me, and who will cause me to die, and then will bring me to life again, and who I hope will forgive me my faults on the day of resurrection. Look at this. 5 verses that start with and. Isn't that in Arabic? Once I finish the English translation, I'll do it with the Arabic as well. In the Arabic, it's very lyrical. But even in English, and it is he who gave this to me, and it is he who did that for me. And the scale is large, right? The scale is large, and the scale is very powerful. My Lord, bestow hukm or hikm, religious knowledge of the affairs and prophethood on me, and join me with the righteous, and grant me an honorable mention in later generations. That he certainly has. Abraham, these are Abrahamic religions. That's more than half of the world. More than half? Yeah, if there's 2 billion Muslims, 2 billion Christians, I don't know the exact population of Jews, but nearly half of the world is Abrahamic. And make me one of the inheritors of the paradise of delight, and forgive my father, verily he is of the erring. And disgrace me not on the day when all the creatures will be resurrected. I want to stop at verse 86. This happens a lot. This happens with Prophet Muhammad's uncle. This happened with other people. This happened with Noah's wife in the Islamic tradition. This happens with Abraham's father, where men of faith, prophets of God, have beseeched the Lord to save and protect their loved ones, whether it's a wife or a child or a parent or an uncle. They've asked the Lord, and eventually, in that circumstance, an exchange happens, which is typically they had the information they needed. You told them the path that you're on, and they still refuse to follow. If they're still refusing to follow, knowing fully well, then you should also know fully well that they're doing so by choice. And if they're doing so by choice, for me, for the Lord to intervene on your behalf would be unethical, unfair, and it wouldn't make sense. These aren't the words in which the Lord communicates. The Lord declares. The Lord doesn't justify, the Lord declares. I, as a human, am trying to justify that it would be unethical if God says, well, okay, Abu Talib is Muhammad's uncle, so even if he doesn't believe, I'll give him a free pass because I'm so forgiving. Yes, the Lord is ever so merciful, ever so forgiving. But we have been given a choice. We have been given a choice to choose to believe what we want to believe. And if we choose not to do so, then expecting the Lord, well, I'm related to somebody who matters to you, who's so valued by you, doesn't cut it. I see where God's coming from. Of course, I see where the prophet is coming from, and where Abraham is coming from, and where Noah and everyone, because they are those loved ones, and we're humans. Of course, we're bound to them. But the Lord is just, and the Lord is merciful, and it is the Lord's mercy to make the information available to you. That look, here is the truth. Follow this, you'll be fine. And if you say, no, I'm not going to follow this, I believe I know better, well, then you're going to face justice. And justice is very different from mercy, and justice is very different from what we believe is fair. Justice is global, universal, right? So, and disgrace be not on the day when all creatures will be resurrected, the day whereon neither wealth nor sons will avail, except him who brings to God a clean heart, clean from polytheism and hypocrisy. Verse 88, the day whereon neither wealth nor sons will avail. Wealth, I understand. Sons, even today, which I fundamentally have concern with. Sons are an asset and daughters are a liability. This is a cultural perspective held by all cultures for eons and eons, for millennia, for eons and eons. And I fundamentally disagree with this. And I think it was born out of, sons are stronger, therefore they can protect you, they can own the house, they can do this, that, the other, whatever. We see that in inheritance law, we see that in India's female feticide tradition. I wonder, it's gone down quite a bit, but there was a tradition, right? In China's one-child policy, we've seen that most families prefer to have boys rather than girls. Therefore, now there's a huge generation of boys in China with very few girls to match them with. I mean, much fewer, not very few, because China is a gigantic population. But we've seen that. That is why it's here. Neither wealth nor sons will avail. So, for example, in the Prophet's family, the uncles he used to denounce him we have these 6 sons, 6 boys, and we have this. It's a sign of pride. It is an asset. I come from a family of 4 boys. Thankfully, my parents have never instilled that thought process, thankfully. But there are countless families, not only in emerging countries, but in developed modern republics, modern democracies, where this mentality still prevails. And I am by no means an egalitarian or a feminist. I don't ascribe to any of those labels. I believe in the value and the sanctity of the human life. And therefore, I believe that they're both valuable. And who is more or less is a futile experiment. I don't dabble in that useless experiment. But you see, this is the process. Neither wealth nor sons will avail. This is what Abraham is saying. And paradise will be brought near to the muttaqun, the pious. And the hellfire will be placed in the full view of the erring, and it will be said to them, where are those that you used to worship, the false gods? Where are they? Instead of God, can they help you or even help themselves? See, this is the important part. Fair enough, you think, okay, maybe they can't help me. Maybe they don't want to help me. Can they help themselves? If I push one of your gods on the floor, can it start flying and not fall? This is exactly what Abraham did. He took the axe and put it on the shoulder of the most senior-most god and said, well, ask him. I didn't break these gods. Ask him. Can he answer you? It was a very clear exercise in dialogue and in logical fallacies almost. And the whole host of Iblis, Satan, together, they will say while contending therein, by God we were truly in a manifest error, or by Allah, by God we were wrong when we held you, false gods, as equals in worship with the Lord of the Alameen, the mankind, jinn, and all that exists. Now you repent. It's too late, man. It's too late. If you repent now, it's too late. All things in life, almost all things, have a statute of limitations, which means they have a time limit. If that time passes, after that, it's too late. Don't bother with it. It's too late. Right? So, such is the case with asking for forgiveness. When you're facing hellfire and then turning to God, God, please forgive us. God will be like, bro, I gave you 70 years. Where were you? I was right here. Where were you? And that's a fair concern. And none has brought us into error except the mujrimun, Satan and those of human beings who commit crimes, murderers, polytheists, so forth. Now we have no intercessors nor a close friend to help us. Alas, if we only had a chance to return to the world, we should truly be among the believers. Easier said than done. When we relapse, everything seems doable. But it's too late. Sometimes we reach the end of things, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, whether it's a degree. Sometimes you can't turn back time. Many times you can. Many times you can find ways to have a second chance, a third chance, a fourth, fifth, 10,000 chance. But sometimes in some things, you can't turn back the clock. And you have to learn how to accept that. And it's up to these people to now realize, oh no, I didn't take my chance in the world to be a believer, to be a person of faith. Now I'm going to burn in the hellfire, and there's nothing I can do. Verily, in this is indeed a sign, yet most of them are not believers. And verily, O Lord, He is truly the Almighty, the All-Merciful. Now, at the end of Moses' story, this was the same verse. And now Abraham's story is finished, the same verse. So the Quran, even if you read it without meaning, if you just read it structurally, it is a magnificent book. It is marvelous in how it is arranged and how it is depicted. It is a marvelous book. The people of Noah belied the messengers when their brother Noah said to them, will you not fear God and obey him? I am a trustworthy messenger to you. So fear God, keep your duty to him, and obey me. No reward do I ask of you for it, my message of Islam. My reward is only from the Lord of the Alamin. So keep your duty to God, fear him, and obey me. They said, shall we believe in you when the meanest of people follow you? He said, and what knowledge have I of what they used to do? Fair enough. In fact, both sides are fair. Well, why should we believe you? Your followers are criminals or poor or rascals or whatever. And you say, well, how am I supposed to know what they did before? I understand the critique. Of course, we are on the side of Noah. So we're going to say, well, your critique is incorrect. But I understand the critique. If you look at somebody's followers and say, well, all those people are following you, and none of those are trustworthy. None of them are trustworthy. How can I follow somebody who's followed by people who are not trustworthy? That's a fair enough complaint. It certainly is a fair complaint. And to that, the first answer is, how am I supposed to know what they used to do? They follow me. And God is going to judge them. That's another one. And the third thing you can say, forget my followers, just look at my message. What am I asking you to do? Fine, you don't like my followers? Cool. What am I telling you to do? I'm telling you to fear God, obey me, be mindful of the day of judgment, so on and so forth. I'm telling you just this. We're not talking about all of that. We're just talking about this. Can we talk about this? So these are some ways you could do that. What did Noah say? What knowledge have I of what they used to do? Their account is only with my Lord, if you could but know. And I am not going to drive away the believers. I'm only a plain warner, as every prophet. They're not preachers. They're not convincers. They're only warning us. They said, if you seize not, O Noah, you will surely be among those stoned to death. Of course, at that time, you can't shoot somebody with a pulse cannon because there was no electricity and there were no bullets, and they may have had some knives, but you could certainly stone people. you could certainly stone people. You could throw stones at them or you could stone them. He said, "My Lord, verily my people have belied me. Therefore judge you between me and them, and save me and those of the believers who are with me." And we saved him and those with him in the laden ship. Then we drowned the rest thereafter. Verily, verily, and this is indeed a sign, yet most of them are not believers. And verily, O Lord, he is indeed the Almighty, the most merciful. And I'm going to stop here because then we start talking about a few other prophets, a few other messages, because the goal today was to start from verse 70-ish, 69, and get to 122. And I'm going to stop here and maybe ponder a bit about what we've actually learned. This chapter is reinforcing and reinstating much of what we already know. There's nothing new here. It's being reinstated and the arguments are being made. And that's why I do the translations in this order, because I'm trying to cover or uncover the chapters as they were revealed in context. At this point of Muhammad's life, he's 46, maybe 45, 46. He's still a young man. He's barely entered middle age. As a young man with a new message, and he's saying to his people, this is right and this is wrong. He's telling them these things. And they refuse to accept, they refuse to acknowledge, they refuse to even listen. And he's saying to them, and he's saying to God, like, what do I do here? Like, I'm sure the prophet prayed all the time. Like, God, you've given me this huge task. I want to do it correctly. What do I do? And these examples are being given for the people, but also for Muhammad to know, look, Noah was only a warner. Abraham, only a warner. Moses, only a warner. They came and gave their warning, and that was about it. Nothing more. That's all you need to do. And I know things are difficult. Noah was being threatened by being stoned. Abraham was being threatened. Moses had to take his people and run off and come back later. There are countless stories of men before you who have lived lives just like you are living right now. And their lives turned out like this. Therefore, believe in what your Lord is saying. You see what I mean? It's for the benefit of the listeners, but also much so for the benefit of Muhammad, peace be upon him, to tell him this message. In any case, I don't know if I did it really quickly or if the verses are very small, but I'm going to stop here, and I will be back next Friday to cover the next section of Surah Ash-Shu'ara, part 4 of the poets, and I think it will take around part 6. So we have, or maybe part 5. We have a bit of time to go with this chapter. And as I mentioned, I am in no hurry to finish the Quran. I am cherishing and celebrating every single moment of this opportunity that I can engage with the book of my Lord. So I'm grateful to do so. Have a wonderful Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, and I shall see you again